Once again, Roger Mudd is with us, and I know you've told this story many times. You and I have shared this conversation about that moment when you asked Senator Kennedy in 1980, well, why do you want to be president? And it confounds people to this day how this could take place. Here was a man who was prepared to run for president. His brother had done so successfully. His other brother had done so, but had been interrupted by that terrible assassination. And so this was not new territory, running for public office on a national level. You threw him what most people would consider to be a softball, and he couldn't even hit it out of the infield, much less the park. You must have been shocked when he answered that question, looking at you and not really being able to come up with any kind of a coherent response.
Well, if I may enter a demur, Tim, I'm not quite sure he was prepared to run. I think the pressure built up on him, and suddenly he found himself unable to resist getting into the race. I think it was the wrong time for him. He didn't have his crowd together, and I don't think he had the time or the inclination or maybe even the discipline to sit down and think about really why he wanted to be president. He knew who he'd like to be, but I don't think he'd done the preparatory work, gone to the mountain and figured out who his enemies would be and who his friends would be. And he had the staff, claimed that the reason he couldn't give an articulate answer was that he really hadn't announced his candidacy. Well, that was a piece of puff because everybody knew he'd already decided to run. Anyway, it to me it meant that he really didn't have his act together. And so the question was, as you say, a simple one. It was a slow pitch. You could read the stitches on the ball as it came in, and I guess it just caught him in a way that, and you could see in the voice and the face the panic that set in when he realized that he was committing suicide right there on camera.
Well, you are a person who is a student of history in addition to being a part of that history by your coverage as well as your conversations with some great newsmakers. Give us a sense of where Edward Kennedy will fit into that history.
Oh, I think he will, without any doubt, will be regarded and is regarded right now as one of the great senators of the 20th century. No question about it. There is one of the visiting rooms there off the Senate floor are portraits of the great senators La Follette and Taft and so forth. And I don't think there's any question that Kennedy will be among them quite soon. He dominated just with his energy and his humor and his legislative discipline so many of the great issues of the 20th century. Not all of them came to fruition. But I think his presence, just mere presence, brought the whole legislative process to a higher level than it had been before.
Roger Mudd, it is always a pleasure, and once again, thank you for joining us on POTUS to share a little bit on this day when we are remembering Senator Edward Kennedy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tim.
And then again, Roger Mudd, former CBS newscaster.